In the year 2123, England, or the Old City as it is now called, was hit by a catastrophic explosion, destroying the city and killing billions. Some said it was scientific testing gone wrong. Others said it was the government looking for a convenient way of getting rid of billions of dissident voters. Nobody knew, but society was plunged into chaos. Banks, or the elect, were hacked into and destroyed by those who knew how. And the people? They became wanderers. Now that money didn't exist, survivors traded with whatever they had. Useless car parts, gin, even children were bought and sold. Television channels were brought up by powerful people and became broadcasting centres against individual thought. The internet became a massive directory of reference for when people were being tried, often by proxy, and executed for crimes of any form. What was the norm was always changing, and the administration were too cowardly to admit their own ignorance. Death was no longer a certainty. They were the daring, or foolish enough, to risk their own safety in order to print unorthodox literature and to distribute it. If caught, they could face death. Questioning was not advised. Dissenting was a death sentence. One of the survivors was called Isabel. Her father had been executed in the early years of the purge due to him writing about the regime and suffering resultant death. Isabel had been her name. Her ID number was X692P. Isabel had heard of these underground crusaders. They discussed literature and published their own newspaper. There were even some rumours that they had a telephone in order to help circulate their ideas to other groups of militant survivors. There should be a world outside, but nobody knew for sure. Nobody knew for sure when everything was highly edited for even a hint of anti-government feeling. The net was closing in. The government spies closed in on people. Book burnings became more frequent. Guards were given permission to come to dwellings and raid buildings before razing the whole thing to the ground. Isabel and a group of thinkers gave themselves the name the United Collective. They had protection from immediate danger, for now, at least. If anything, people got braver. A few weeks later, an injured man was brought into the headquarters of the UC. He had been found on a deserted stretch of road, dying of blood loss and overexposure. Isabel named him Max because although his ID number was on his leg, as was customary, he had nothing else that might reveal his identity. He had been on the road for many weeks and was dying. Isabel felt cheated. Such a minute glance into the world that was in existence before was slipping away. Assigned to care for Max, Isabel wanted to find out more about who he was. Max was lying on a mattress, laid out on the ground. They were government issued, as the use of proper hospital beds was reserved for those with high standing in government. Isabel could do little but try and wash his wounds as best she could. She replaced the murky bandages with fresh stuff brought on the black market the previous day. Max opened his eyes. "Where'd you come from?" Isabel asked. It was a few minutes before Max spoke. "I'm surprised you don't recognise me," Max said. "We were at school together, just after the elect was hacked." Isabel recalled Max. "The government says it's heretical to—" Max reached up and cupped Isabel's cheek. "My brother Adam was killed fighting in the Second War of the Old City. Don't you hope that the fools will be overthrown?" "And for what?" Isabel wrung out a rag into the bucket by the mattress. "Freedom, free speech." Max paused. "Love." "Love is rebellion," Isabel said solemnly. "It's been 3 years, Isabel," Max murmured, "and sometimes you have to fight for what you believe." A few days before he died, Max regained consciousness for the last time. "There's a town beyond the old city, Isabel. It's called New West. There's a map in my bag. I want you to go to New West. Make a new life yourself. Live. For me," Max said, his face pale. "And one last thing." Isabel took his hand. "I've always loved you, so do this for me. If you do it, I'll die happy," Max said slowly. "Yes, an overdose of Sterling B will stop the tracking device, but it will also stop my heart. This won't hurt much. My heart stopped when I lost you." With shaking hands, Isabel did as she was asked. Max died with more peace than he would have done if he died in one of the many work camps where dissolute members of the old city usually ended up. On the night Max died, the phone rang. It was Director M. "I see you've terminated X41P. Director M rasped. "He was one of our spies. The United Collective will be terminated. This is the last caller. Death is a certainty." Isabel took a deep breath. "I'm not sure I care anymore." Director M laughed menacingly. The line went dead. Isabel sat outside, awaiting her arrest and certain death. In her clenched palm was the vial of Serling B. She looked up at the sky and smiled.